Why the Roman legions were unstoppable for 500 years. The battle is not over yet. Men are still shouting, blades are still clashing, dust still rises beneath thousands of feet. From a distance, it looks like chaos. The kind of chaos that has defined war for centuries. Unpredictable, violent, uncertain. But something changes. Not in the noise, not in the movement, but in the minds of those still fighting. A realization begins to spread. It is subtle at first. A hesitation, a glance, a shift in breathing. Then it grows, passing from one soldier to another faster than any command ever could. They understand something before the battle ends. They are going to lose. Not because they are weaker, not because they lack courage. Many of them have fought before. Many have won before. They know what victory feels like. This is different. Because across the field, something is approaching that does not behave like an army. It does not break formation. It does not rush forward in anger. It does not rely on the strength of individuals. It moves as one body, step by step, shield against shield. A wall that breathes, advances, and never hesitates. The legions of Roman Empire do not fight like men. They advance like certainty. And in that moment, long before the final blow is struck, long before the last soldier falls, the outcome is already decided. This is the true power of Rome, not just to win battles, but to make defeat inevitable. The moment an army realizes it will lose. You are standing in the front line. Your shield is heavy in your arm. Your grip tightens around your weapon. The noise around you is overwhelming, yet your focus narrows on what lies ahead. The enemy is close now, close enough to see their faces, but something feels wrong. They are not charging, they are not shouting, they are advancing, slowly, deliberately. Every step lands at the same time. Every shield remains locked with the next. There are no gaps, no hesitation, no individual movement. Just a unified front that seems to ignore the chaos around it. You strike, your weapon hits wood, not flesh. A shield absorbs the blow. Before you can recover, another shield pushes forward, then another. The line does not break, it tightens. You try again, this time harder. It does not matter, because you are not fighting a man, you are fighting a system. Behind that first line, there are more. Rows of soldiers rotating, replacing, reinforcing. No exhaustion, no disorder. The formation adapts, adjusts, continues. And then it happens. You look to your side. The man next to you steps back. Not in panic, not yet. But something inside him has shifted. He sees what you are beginning to see. This is not a battle that can be turned. Not with strength, not with courage, not with numbers, because nothing you do creates chaos in them. And without chaos, there is no opening. That is when fear changes. It is no longer fear of death. It is the certainty of it. This is the moment Rome wins, not when the enemy falls, but when the enemy understands that falling is only a matter of time. War before Rome. Before Rome imposed its will across continents, war looked very different. It was louder, faster, more emotional. Armies clashed like storms colliding. Warriors rushed forward, driven by courage, pride, and the desperate need to prove themselves. Battles were often decided in moments of chaos, where a single act of bravery could turn the tide, or a sudden panic could destroy an entire force. There was no consistency. One day, a tribe could win against impossible odds. The next, the same warriors could collapse under pressure. Victory belonged not to the most prepared, but to the most fortunate, the most aggressive, or simply the least disorganized in that moment. War was unpredictable, and that unpredictability was accepted. Leaders relied on inspiration more than structure. Commands were shouted, not executed. Formations existed, but they were fragile. Once the lines broke, the battle dissolved into scattered duels, where individual strength mattered more than collective strategy. This was the world Rome entered, a world where war was human, driven by emotion, defined by chaos, limited by the inability to control what happened once the fighting began. And for centuries, this was enough. Because no one had found a way to remove that chaos. No one had built a system strong enough to hold under pressure, to maintain order when everything around it collapsed. Every army, no matter how powerful, eventually became vulnerable to confusion, fatigue, or fear. Until something changed. Because what Rome introduced was not just another army entering this chaotic world. It was something designed to eliminate chaos itself. And once that happened, the rules of war no longer applied in the same way. The legion was not an army. What you are seeing on that battlefield is not simply a group of trained men. It is something far more deliberate. The Roman legion was not built to fight battles. It was built to remove uncertainty from them. Every movement, every formation, every response had already been defined long before the first soldier stepped onto the field. Other armies gathered men. Rome constructed a system. Each legion was organized with precision. Units divided, roles assigned, commands structured in a way that did not depend on inspiration or emotion. If one man fell, another stepped into his place. If one unit weakened, another reinforced it. Nothing relied on chance. This is where the difference becomes impossible to ignore. In most armies, the strength came from individuals, skilled fighters, charismatic leaders, moments of courage that could ignite victory. But those same strengths created vulnerability. When the leader fell, the army faltered. When fear spread, the formation collapsed. Rome removed that risk. Because the legion did not depend on individuals. It depended on repetition. Every soldier trained the same way. Every unit moved the same way. Every legion functioned like every other legion. There was no variation that could introduce weakness. No reliance on a single point of failure. You could replace men. You could rebuild units. You could even lose entire forces. But the system remained intact. This is what made it different from anything that came before. It was not just stronger. It was more stable, more predictable, more resistant to the chaos that destroyed other armies. And on the battlefield, that stability becomes something powerful. Because while the enemy fights to survive the moment, the legion executes something it has already mastered. Not reacting, not improvising, but following a structure that has been tested, refined, and repeated until it becomes inevitable. This is the shift. War is no longer decided by who fights harder. It is decided by who controls the outcome before the fight even begins. The power of replacement. There is something unsettling about facing an enemy that does not weaken when it loses men. In most armies, every casualty matters. Each fallen soldier creates a gap, a fracture in the line, a moment of vulnerability that can spread. You feel it, you see it. And once it begins, it is difficult to stop. But in the legions of Roman Empire, loss does not behave the same way, because every soldier is part of something designed to continue without him. When a man falls, the line does not hesitate. Another steps forward, already trained to take that exact position, already conditioned to execute the same movements with the same precision. There is no confusion, no disruption, no emotional collapse that spreads through the ranks. The formation closes, and the system continues. This is not indifference. It is design. Roman military structure was built on standardization. Equipment was uniform. Training was identical. Commands were understood the same way across every unit. A soldier was not valuable because he was unique. He was valuable because he could be replaced without changing the function of the whole. This changes everything, because now the enemy is no longer fighting a group of individuals. They are facing something that does not lose identity when it takes damage. In other armies, killing enough men can break the will of those who remain. Panic spreads, cohesion dissolves, victory becomes possible. But here, the opposite happens. Loss is absorbed. the line stabilizes, and the advance continues. This creates a psychological shift that is impossible to ignore. You strike, you push, you fight with everything you have, and yet nothing changes. The enemy does not thin in a way that matters. It does not weaken in a way you can exploit. It simply replaces, and that replacement feels endless. This is where the idea of being unstoppable begins to take form. Not because Rome never lost soldiers, but because losing them did not stop Rome from advancing. Discipline as control, not courage. When people speak about the Roman legions, they often use one word, discipline, but they misunderstand what it meant. It was not about bravery. It was not about standing firm out of pride or refusing to retreat out of honor. Those ideas belong to the old world of war, where emotion drove action and courage decided outcomes. Roman discipline was something colder. It was control. Control over movement, control over reaction, control over fear itself. Every soldier was trained not to feel less, but to act the same regardless of what he felt. The chaos of battle did not disappear around him. It simply stopped influencing him. That is a different kind of power. Because in most armies, fear spreads quickly. One man hesitates, another sees it, and suddenly the line begins to weaken. The formation breaks not because of strength, but because of emotion. Rome removed that chain reaction. Orders were followed exactly as given. Formations were maintained even under pressure. Movements were repeated until they no longer required thought. A soldier did not decide what to do in battle. He executed what had already been decided. This creates something the enemy cannot easily understand. You charge forward with everything you have, expecting the line to react, to bend, to break under pressure. But it does not. It absorbs the impact, reorganizes, and continues as if nothing has changed. Not because the men are fearless, but because fear does not alter their behavior. This is where discipline becomes something more than training. It becomes a way to control chaos itself. Because once you remove unpredictability from your own actions, you begin to control the entire battlefield. The enemy still reacts, still improvises, still makes decisions under pressure, but you do not. And that imbalance creates an advantage that grows with every second of the fight. The Roman legion did not win because its soldiers were braver. It won because its soldiers were more controlled. And in war, control is what decides who breaks first. The invisible infrastructure of war. You see the battlefield. You see the soldiers, the shields, the formations advancing with precision. You think the strength of Rome exists in that moment, in the clash of weapons, in the discipline of the line. But the truth is, by the time the battle begins, Rome has already done most of its work. Because what made the legions of the Roman Empire unstoppable was not only what happened in combat, it was everything that happened before it. Every Roman army moved through a network that no enemy could match. Roads that cut through mountains, forests, and rivers, allowing legions to travel faster, resupply more efficiently, and arrive where they were least expected. These were not temporary paths. They were permanent arteries, built to support war across an entire continent. And every time the army stopped, something remarkable happened. They built a city. Not a camp thrown together in haste, but a fortified structure, laid out with order, defended with walls, trenches, and gates. Every soldier knew his place inside it. Every section had a purpose. It was rebuilt every night, no matter how tired they were, no matter how close the enemy might be. This is where the difference becomes clear. While other armies rested, Rome prepared. While others recovered, Rome fortified. While others hoped the next day would bring advantage, Rome engineered it. Supply lines extended behind them, organized and protected. Food, equipment, reinforcements, all moving with a level of coordination that made the army self-sustaining. It did not depend on the land it conquered in the same way other forces did. It carried its stability with it. And this creates a hidden advantage that is easy to overlook, because on the battlefield, both sides may appear equal. But one of them arrives rested, organized, supplied, and positioned with intention. the other arrives uncertain. This is not just preparation. It is control extended beyond the battlefield. Rome did not wait for favorable conditions. It created them. And by the time the enemy realized this, the outcome was already being shaped long before the first clash of steel, the battlefield as a calculated space. Most armies arrive at a battlefield. Rome chooses it. That difference decides more than any weapon ever could. Before the first soldier steps into position, before the lines are drawn, before the noise begins, the Romans have already studied the ground, the slope of the land, the direction of the sun, the movement of wind and dust, the distance between obstacles. Nothing is left to chance, because the battlefield is not just a location, it is a tool. The legions of the Roman Empire do not react to terrain, they use it. High ground is not an advantage discovered during battle, it is chosen before it begins. Open space is not an opportunity. It is a condition they create, forcing the enemy into positions where their formations can function at full efficiency. And if the terrain does not favor them, they change it. They dig, they build, they reshape the environment until it serves their purpose. Trenches, obstacles, defensive lines, all designed to limit the enemy's movement and control the direction of the fight. This is where the illusion of chaos begins to disappear. Because while the enemy believes the battle is unfolding in real time, responding to each movement, each decision, each mistake, Rome is executing something already planned. The engagement is not spontaneous, it is structured. They decide when the battle begins. They decide where the pressure is applied. They decide how the enemy will be forced to respond. Every action from the opposing side becomes predictable, not because the enemy lacks intelligence, but because their options have already been reduced. And once options are reduced, outcomes follow. This is the shift that changes everything. The battlefield is no longer a place where anything can happen. It becomes a controlled space where only certain things can happen. And those things favor Rome. This is why their victories feel inevitable, not because they are stronger in the moment, but because the moment itself has already been shaped long before anyone realizes it. Adaptation after defeat. There is a moment in history when Rome should have broken. The sun rises over a field in southern Italy. Dust hangs in the air. Tens of thousands of Roman soldiers stand in formation, facing an enemy they believe they can crush. The confidence is absolute. The numbers are overwhelming, and then everything collapses. At the Battle of Cannae, the Roman army is surrounded, compressed, suffocated by a strategy they did not expect. The lines tighten. Movement becomes impossible. Men cannot swing their weapons, cannot escape, cannot breathe. One of the greatest armies ever assembled is destroyed. Not defeated, destroyed. By the end of the day, tens of thousands are dead. The scale of the loss is almost unimaginable. In any other civilization, this would have been the end. Panic would spread. Allies would abandon them. Leadership would fracture. The idea of resistance would collapse under the weight of what had just happened. But Rome does something different. It does not break. It absorbs the loss. There is no dramatic revenge, no reckless counterattack driven by emotion. Instead, something far more dangerous begins to take shape. Rome studies what happened. It dissects the failure. It removes what did not work and reinforces what remains. It adapts. This is where the true strength of the Roman system reveals itself, not in victory, but in response to defeat. Because a system that only works when winning is fragile, but a system that becomes stronger after losing is nearly impossible to destroy. New strategies are implemented. Command structures are adjusted. Future battles are approached with a level of caution and calculation that reflects what was learned on that field. The enemy expects collapse. What they encounter instead is evolution, and this creates a new kind of fear. Because now, defeating Rome does not end the war. It improves Rome. Every loss becomes information. Every failure becomes refinement. Every defeat becomes a step toward a more resilient system. This is why they remain unstoppable, not because they never lose, but because losing does not stop them from becoming stronger. Fear as a weapon. Long before the battle begins, the outcome is already shaping itself inside the minds of those who will fight it. This is where Rome becomes something more than an army. Because by now, the legions of the Roman Empire are no longer unknown. Their methods are understood. Their formations are recognized. Their response to pressure has been witnessed again and again across different lands, different cultures, different armies. And that knowledge changes everything. When an army faces Rome, it is not encountering uncertainty. It is encountering a pattern. They know the Romans will not break formation. They know the advance will be steady. They know the line will hold under pressure. They know that even if they push, even if they strike hard, the response will come with precision. This creates something powerful. Predictable dominance. Not unpredictability, not surprise, but the certainty that the same outcome will repeat itself. That no matter where the battle takes place, the structure of Rome will impose itself on the chaos of the fight. And this is where fear evolves. It is no longer fear of the unknown. It is fear of the inevitable. You stand on the battlefield already aware of what is coming. You have heard the stories. You have seen the results. You have watched armies larger than yours fail to break them. You have watched warriors braver than you fall against the same advancing wall. And now, it is your turn. This is what makes the first moment of hesitation so dangerous. Because once doubt enters the mind, it spreads faster than any command can control. One soldier steps back. Another notices. A gap appears, not in the formation, but in confidence. And Rome does not need to create that gap. It only needs to advance into it. This is the hidden advantage. The battle is not only fought with weapons, it is fought inside the mind of the enemy. And when the enemy begins to believe that defeat is unavoidable, the structure of their resistance begins to weaken before the first decisive blow is ever delivered. This is how Rome often wins before the battle begins. Not by surprise, but by certainty. The soldier inside the machine. It is easy to look at the Roman legion and see only the formation, the shields aligned, the movement synchronized, the system functioning with precision. From a distance, it feels almost mechanical, as if the individual no longer matters. But inside that formation, there is a man who wakes before sunrise, who trains the same movements again and again until they become instinct. A man who carries the weight of his equipment across miles of terrain, who builds camps at the end of each march, who stands in formation knowing exactly what is expected of him. He is not there by accident. He has been shaped. The soldier of the Roman Empire is not simply trained to fight. He is conditioned to belong. His identity is no longer separate from the legion. It is defined by it. His actions are not driven by impulse, but by structure. His role is not to improvise, but to execute. This creates something powerful, because when a man believes he is part of something larger than himself, his limits begin to change. Fatigue becomes secondary. Fear becomes manageable. The question is no longer whether he can endure, but whether the system requires him to. And it always does. Every movement he makes is supported by the structure around him. The man to his left holds the line. The man to his right advances with him. Behind him, others are ready to replace him if he falls. He is never alone, even in the most intense moments of the battle. This removes something that breaks most armies: isolation. In many forces, when the line begins to fail, the individual is left exposed. Decisions become personal. Survival becomes uncertain. And in that uncertainty, cohesion collapses. But here, the opposite happens. The structure reinforces the individual, and the individual reinforces the structure. This is the balance that makes the legion so resilient, because it is not just a system imposed on men. It is a system carried by men who have become part of it. And when that happens, the army is no longer just organized, it becomes alive. Why other empires could not copy it? By the time Rome dominates the known world, its methods are no longer a secret. Other empires watch. They observe the formations, the discipline, the organization of the legions of the Roman Empire. They see the results on the battlefield. They understand, at least on the surface, what makes Rome effective. And they try to copy it. They train their soldiers in tighter formations. They attempt to standardize equipment. They introduce commands, drills, structures that resemble what the Romans have built, but something is missing. Because what they are copying is only the visible layer. They see the formation. They do not see the foundation. The Roman system is not just military. It is cultural, political, logistical. It is supported by a society that is built to sustain it. Citizens trained from a young age to serve. Infrastructure that allows armies to move and resupply without interruption. Leadership structures that maintain order beyond the battlefield. You cannot replicate that by changing how soldiers stand in a line. You cannot build it quickly, and you cannot maintain it without the same depth of structure behind it. This is where imitation begins to fail. Other armies adopt Roman tactics, but they do not have Roman discipline in its true form. They try to enforce order, but they cannot sustain it under pressure. They build systems, but those systems collapse when tested by chaos, because they are not rooted deeply enough. Rome's strength is not in what it does during the battle. It is in everything that supports the battle. This is why its power feels so difficult to reproduce. It is not a technique. It is an ecosystem. And without that ecosystem, what remains is only an imitation that cannot survive the same conditions. This is the final advantage, because while others try to become Rome, Rome continues to evolve as itself, and that difference ensures that the gap between them is never truly closed. The slow crack in the system. For centuries, the system holds. It advances, adapts, absorbs pressure, and continues to impose order on chaos. Every weakness is corrected. Every defeat becomes a lesson. Every generation inherits a structure that still functions with precision. From the outside, it appears unbreakable. But systems like this do not collapse suddenly. They change slowly, almost invisibly. The Roman Empire expands beyond what it was originally built to sustain. Frontiers stretch across vast distances. Communication slows. Control weakens. The same structure that once operated with cohesion begins to strain under the weight of its own success. This is not failure. It is pressure. The legions still fight. They still win. But something begins to shift beneath the surface. Standardization becomes harder to maintain. Recruitment changes. Soldiers are no longer shaped in the same way. The connection between the individual and the system begins to loosen. And when that connection weakens, so does the precision. Political instability adds another layer. Leadership becomes inconsistent. Decisions are influenced by internal conflict rather than strategic clarity. The system that once removed uncertainty from war begins to absorb uncertainty from within. This is the turning point that few recognize in the moment. Because on the battlefield, Rome still looks powerful. But beneath that image, the structure is no longer as stable as it once was. Small inconsistencies appear, then more. And over time, the system that once controlled chaos begins to experience it, not from the enemy, from itself. This is how unstoppable forces begin to slow. Not through a single defeat, not through an external force strong enough to destroy them, but through gradual changes that alter the foundation they depend on. And once that foundation is no longer the same, the outcomes it once guaranteed begin to change as well. The real reason Rome was unstoppable. By now, you have seen the battlefield, the system, the discipline, the structure behind every movement of the legions of the Roman Empire. It would be easy to say their strength came from training, or weapons, or leadership. But none of those alone explain what made them unstoppable for 5 centuries. Because other armies had strong warriors, other empires had powerful leaders, other civilizations had moments of brilliance. What they did not have was this: Rome removed randomness from war. Every element you have seen points to the same truth: the formation that does not break, the system that replaces its losses, the discipline that controls reaction, the infrastructure that prepares the battlefield before it begins, the ability to adapt after defeat, the psychological weight that weakens the enemy before the first strike. All of it serves one purpose: to eliminate uncertainty. In most battles, chaos decides the outcome. A mistake, a moment of fear, a sudden shift that no one can control. Victory belongs to the side that navigates that chaos better in that moment. Rome changed that. It reduced the number of variables. It controlled movement, timing, positioning, reaction. It transformed war from something unpredictable into something structured. Not perfectly, not completely, but enough to create an advantage that repeated itself again and again across generations. And when outcomes begin to repeat, something powerful happens. They begin to feel inevitable. This is why armies understood they would lose before the battle ended. Not because they lacked strength, but because they were still fighting inside chaos, while Rome was operating outside of it. That is the difference. One side reacts, the other executes. And when execution replaces reaction, the outcome is no longer decided in the moment. It is decided long before it begins. This is the real reason Rome was unstoppable. Not because it could not be defeated, but because it made defeat far less likely than any army before it. When war becomes structured, when uncertainty is reduced, when every movement is part of a system designed to hold under pressure, victory stops being a possibility. It becomes a pattern, and patterns once established are very difficult to break.